Welcome to the Knowledge Entrepreneurs Show, where we celebrate the innovators driving change in the education industry. At Edison OS, we've worked with over 500 knowledge entrepreneurs to turn their edtech ideas into profitable businesses. Good morning, Joshua. Welcome to the Knowledge Entrepreneur Show. Thank you so much for taking time out for this.
Thanks for having me be here, Jag. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Joshua. Joshua, my first question, but before that, I was browsing the internet and trying to learn as much as possible about you, what you've done, and all that. And I clicked on the section called Meet Joshua on your website, and I was very fascinated to see that you've been doing a lot of like graphic design, and you've worked like corporate jobs and stuff like that. So, how did the coaching happen, and specifically, how did you get to become an hypnotist?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll try to keep that relatively simple, but there's a little bit of a story to that, right? There's
Please.
always, for everybody, there's the origin story, right?
Yeah.
So for me, my my journey started at around the age of 35, and that was when I kind of hit a wall. I have 5 kids, and so I had 5 kids at age of 35. I'm married, but the marriage is clearly done. I'm in a home I didn't want to buy, but I bought it, and I didn't want to live in this town. It's my hometown that I grew up in. I wanted to get the heck out of there, but I lived there for 20 years. And I'm working a job that I thought was going to be my ideal job, but it actually is eating away my soul. So I start to make some changes in my life, because what happened was I just kind of lived life and I let it happen to me. I didn't make choices. I let life make choices for me, which I mean really is another way of making choices. So I decided to be intentional, to start making choices. So I started making choices. But first of all, I filed for divorce. I found a job that was closer to my home. I could be with my kids more, but also was in line with my values. I quit smoking. I started to get involved with the community that I had kind of ostracized myself from. And along that journey, I started exploring my curiosities. One of those curiosities was performing. And I learned there's an art form called sideshow arts. So sideshow arts are like eating fire or laying on a bed of nails. We're talking to the guy from India, right? Or walking on broken glass, or escaping from a straitjacket, like those kinds of things. And I loved it. And so I found a mentor, and he taught me how to do all these things. And then I built a show around it. So for about 10 years, I toured that show around the Midwest of the United States here. But when I look back at that, what I realized I was actually doing was I was training myself to deal with different fears. Because what had really happened was I had been so afraid of stepping out of pretty much everything that was why I had stayed in that life that I had kind of made for, or chosen by not choosing, because I was afraid. So this was my way of stepping into my fear and beyond it. And it worked really well. I kept doing different things, and eventually I wanted to move from that small town to where I live now, which is in the Twin Cities in Minnesota, about 4 hours away. And when I did that, I still had 2 kids in high school, one of them just moving into high school, and they didn't want to come with me. I was really attached to being a dad, and it still is very important to me to be a dad, be a good dad, be there for them. I found a hypnotist, and she helped me move past that fear, and to realize even if I move away, it doesn't mean I'm abandoning them. I can still come back. I'm not that far away. And so that's what I did. I arranged it so I would basically spend an hour or a week where I was in the Twin Cities, and then a week down by them. That was kind of what we had been doing for the last 10 years anyway, week on, week off. So so as I worked with that hypnotist though, I got really clear on how powerful this was. And when I started to look for what I really wanted to do when I grew up, because I, like you said, I did fine arts, I did graphic arts, I worked for an organic food company for a long time, and I was trying to, all the while I had side gigs, and I was trying to build my own business, but none of them really took off. But hypnosis and hypnotherapy really sparked an interest with me. I just realized if I could help other people get past their blocks faster than the 10 plus years it took me, and I could get paid pretty well to do that, what more empowering way could I think of to live? So I found a mentor. I trained with him for about a year, and then I started working with friends and families and coworkers, anybody who would sit down and play with me. And after about a year and a half, I had built the business up to the point where it had replaced my income, and I went full time. I've been full time since the fall of 2018.
Wow, quite a journey, Joshua. And couldn't agree more with you when you started off by saying that there's always a choice. I mean, you said it in a different way, but that's how I'd interpret what
Yeah,
you said. And you just got to tell
make the
yourself that
choice.
whatever you're doing, it is your choice. At the end of the day, there's
Yeah,
no escaping from that. There's no choice. So got it, Joshua. Joshua, when you said you hypnosis or hypnotist, the person who you worked with
yeah,
helped you, and you decided, why not I do this because it works, like it's worked wonders for me. But
yeah.
there's always a certain aura that's attached to the word hypnosis. And even a couple of minutes when we had a discussion before starting the recording, you said it's pretty much neuro linguistic programming. So my question to you is, when you decided to take it up and when you took it to your friends and family, how did you position it? Did you use the
Mm,
word hypnosis, and what were the questions? And the were there skeptics and were there
yeah.
skepticism? If you can walk us through that.
Sure. And you're right. There is a charge to that word of hypnosis or hypnotist. And I do a lot of networking. So I'm out talking to people all the time, a lot of people that I've never met, and I've tried introducing myself in different ways. Sometimes I'll introduce myself as a hypnotherapist because that's my
Right, right.
actual certification, right? And sometimes I'll introduce myself as a hypnotist. So what I noticed when I did that was if I introduced myself as a hypnotherapist, people's eyes would glaze over and they'd be like, "Oh, I don't need a therapist." And they
Because
wouldn't be interested. When I talked to them and I introduced myself as a hypnotist, I would get basically two different reactions. One was, "Get away from me! Don't take over my mind." And with if they do that, then I would always go like this: "You are going to have an amazing day."
right.
As a joke, right? But it would make them smile, and that was important. The other reaction that I would get is, "Oh, I saw a hypnotist at my high school graduation party or in college, or my grandma quit smoking using hypnosis, or my dad lost a bunch of weight using hypnosis." Almost everybody has a story about hypnosis and a hypnotist, and they have an idea in their mind about how it works. So it's not a bad thing that it has that charge if you kind of use it the right way. So what I have found is I put myself out there as a hypnotist. There's a lot of people that are using hypnosis or NLP, which is I wouldn't say that hypnosis is NLP, but I would say that NLP is a form of hypnosis.
Right,
But there's a
right,
lot of people that just a slight change there. A lot of people that use these skills, but they don't tell you they're doing that. They are a life coach or whatever kind of a
right,
coach that also uses these skills, which is fine. That's just it's a preference. Some people prefer that.
right,
When I put myself out there as a hypnotist, though, what happens is people search me out specifically because they think in their mind a hypnotist is going to help me. Now, they might be wrong. right? They might think that I'm going to just say magic words and things are going to change for them, which is not how it works. But they're still contacting me and they're reaching out. And then we can have a conversation. Then I can find out if they are actually a good fit for me or if I'm a good fit for them, and then we can work together. But so I've just found that there are skeptics, and I mean, I don't need to try to change anybody's mind. There isn't, the thing about hypnosis is you don't have to believe in it for it to work. There's science behind it, and there's neuroscience behind it. In fact, there's more and more neuroscience behind it as now that we're able to measure all that stuff and see what's happening in the brain when you're in these different types of altered states.
Got it, Joshua. Joshua, if you can, tell us what is it? What's the science behind hypnosis? What actually happens? If you can clear the air, remove the
Yeah.
myths.
Yeah. So at the simplest way to talk about this is, let's remove the word hypnosis and we'll put in the word trance. Okay? So
Right.
if you do that, it makes it a lot easier to understand. Because we go into trance states all the time. We go into an anxiety trance or an anger trance, or we're driving somewhere and we miss our exit because we're in a driving trance, or we're watching a movie and we get so ingrained in the story that we cry.
Joshua, I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
So when you say trance is, can you just define it for us? Is it
It's
losing yourself of what you're doing in the present?
Yeah, a trance is basically an altered state, a state that is different than normal consciousness. So an altered state of consciousness, right?
Okay.
Where if we're just going through life normally, we're in a normal state of conscious. But even that, we're going kind of in and out of different states of consciousness all the time. Hypnosis is a specific kind of consciousness. It is a focused and a relaxed state where you now have access to inner resources that are always there, but sometimes we just don't recognize it or don't have access to that. So kind of to come back to, you wanted to know the
replacing the
neuroscience
word
here.
with trance.
Yeah. So that's kind of the one, the best way that I have found to think about this. And then the neuroscience of change is really, really simple. When we're running a problem, right? Let's say anxiety, for example. Let's say speaking anxiety, speaking in front of people. So the way that works is when you step out in front of people, or maybe even think about stepping out in front of people, all of a sudden this pathway in the brain lights up, and it's a literal path. It's neurons connected to neurons with synapses to create a pathway. This was created probably when you were pretty young through some kind of emotional experience that came up, and the brain's like, oh, that was highly emotional. I have to remember this. And it like stores it and it creates that moment, that pathway.
Right.
And typically, like anxiety is, this feels dangerous. So anxiety comes up and you get out of the situation, and now you're not in danger anymore. Like that's kind of what the brain is doing. Getting you out of is trying to keep you safe, get you out of a dangerous situation. So coming back to how this works, how the change works. When we're using hypnosis, we are starting by lighting up that problem pathway. And NLP does this too. Any kind of change procedure, whether it's hypnosis or NLP or EMDR or any of the many ways that you can do this, they're all doing the same thing. We light up the pathway, usually by talking about the problem, which is enough to get it somewhat activated. And then we use these different hypnotic processes to send those neurons down a new path. And we'll do that again and again. And what that does is it rewires the brain. It literally changes how you're thinking in the moment. So now when that trigger moment happens and it's time to give that speech, you can decide how you want to feel. You can decide, I want to feel excited about this, which is really just the same thing as anxiety with a different label on it. You just get to decide how you want to feel. So that's the science of it. It's very simple. We light up the problem. We send the neurons down a new pathway. It rewires the brain.
Got it, Joshua. Seems pretty simple to start off with, but
Yeah.
now let's dive a little deeper. Now let's say somebody comes to you with, now so far what I've understood is it can be applied to solve any problem uh, you know that you face. That's my understanding. And typically, I mean, how what is the time duration that it takes for a person to use this tool and solve their problem or overcome the obstacle that they're facing?
Yeah. So most of the time when I'm working with somebody, I do a minimum of 6 sessions. And
Right.
what I've found is that's the minimum that it's going to take. And that will usually deal with most types of simpler types of challenges, like a phobia or even anxiety. We can usually resolve that in 6 sessions. But even having said that, people are getting results out of the first session, out of the second session. Like it keeps adding on itself.
Right.
I like to start simple and small and then make things more complicated if we need to. A lot of times you can go a long way with simple, easy kinds of situations. And then, if you're still bumping up against a wall, then we'll do something that's more in depth, more deeper, if as needed.
Got it, Joshua. Joshua, now, the general perception of people when they hear about hypnosis, and, you said, uh, in a funny way that people would be like, you know what, don't get into my mind and stuff like that. Now, how real or how possible is that?
So take over somebody's mind.
Yeah, okay. I'll tell you why I'm asking this question. Right
Yeah,
now, I'm pretty active on Instagram. Not that I'm a doom scroller or something, but yeah, I do
sure.
that, but in a limited way.
Yeah,
It throws up some interesting stuff, and that's how I saw, self-proclaimed mentalists or hypnotists. Uh, just at the shake of a hand, making people get into deep sleep, and just by the snap of the finger making
yeah,
them come awake and stuff like that. Now, what
yeah.
is this hypnosis, or how true or false are these things?
So it's really pretty interesting. It's using the same ideas that I use. When somebody's
Right.
in my office, I don't need to be all flashy. We don't need to do a show for them to get into a state.
Right.
When you're watching these things on Instagram or specials on TV or anything like that, what you're not seeing is all the other times that they've already done this with somebody. So think of it like this. I'm with a group of friends. Say there's 5 of us that are here. One of my friends is working with this hypnotist.
Uh,
The hypnotist might take a little bit of time to get them to go into a hypnotic state, but then he does that. He says, "Now, whenever I say the word bunny and snap my fingers, you're going to drop even deeper." And I've seen that happen.
right.
Now he goes to the next person. He does the same thing. I'm going to just say bunny and you're going to go into hypnosis. And that person's like already knows what he's supposed to do or what she's supposed to do, right? And he goes down the line until that last person where they're just like snap their finger and they just fall over. You're not seeing the people that he snapped his finger and they just looked at him like, what? So there's some selective video editing that's happening there.
Mm,
There's
right.
also the expectation around a performance. Like people that are going to go see a hypnotic show or are going to stand and watch a hypnotist are excited about
Right.
seeing the hypnotist. They're already half hypnotized. They might even get to go into hypnosis. Like, ooh, I'm kind of excited. I might get to experience this. They are primed and ready. That's a
Mm,
lot different than a lot of the people that I see. But that's some of the reasons why it looks so flashy and it looks so different because it's entertainment. It needs to look a little different than when I'm working with somebody. It's not quite the same. It uses the same processes, basically the same ideas, but it just you just do it in a different way.
got it, Joshua. Joshua, the first problems, or some of the things that I think people can put this to use, at least to me, it's about alcohol problems, smoking addictions
Mhm.
and stuff like that. Those are common stuff. What are the what are the problems that you mostly deal with? What are the problems that people come to you with, apart from these
Yeah.
things?
So I don't work with that many people for addictions. I have somebody else in my network that I usually send them to, but it is a great option if somebody's really ready to make the change.
Okay.
Because the thing to remember is, again, it's not magic words.
Right.
A hypnotist is really more like a guide, and I can guide you to a place in your own mind where you can make a change.
Right.
But if you're not ready to do that and you're not willing to do that, it's not going to work. Like, I can't force anything, which is why you can't really take over anybody's mind, because
Mm.
you can just simply open your eyes. If somebody ever tells you in hypnosis to do something beyond your moral or ethical values, you won't do it. You just won't do
Right.
it.
Right.
So what I work with people most with is anxiety, eliminating a phobia, like a fear of flying or a fear of driving or
Right.
a fear of dogs or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
heights and elevators, all that kind of thing. I work with a lot of people that are dealing with self-sabotage. So they know what to do, they know how to do it, but they're not doing it, or they're doing the exact opposite thing that's going to break all of the work that they've been putting together.
Right.
I work with a lot of men that have sexual issues as well and help them find their internal confidence. And just, I work with a lot of people to find internal confidence in general in lots of areas of their life. So those are probably the top ones. And it all really comes down to some different kinds of anxieties, like even a phobia, a fear, the sexual challenges, all of that has to do with anxiety, really.
Got it, Joshua. Got it. Joshua, now I'm just going to go back to 2018 when you first started this.
Yeah.
Want to talk to you about how you got the business up and running for those,
Hmm.
listening and, who might be training to do something similar to what you're doing. First of all, you did this, it worked for you. That's where you got your conviction from. And that doesn't kind of make you qualified to do that, offer the services and all that. Not only
Yeah.
from, can you do it or not, but even from a positioning point of view, you need something. So what was your
Yeah.
thought process? What was your approach? And what is the story of finding your first totally organic paying client?
Yeah. So when I started my training, and like I said, I worked with a mentor for a year. He taught me how to take people in and out of hypnosis to start with. That was the first half of the year that we worked together. It was really just, what is this? How do you even do this? Let's have some practice time.
Right.
But then the second half, we learned how to do some uh, therapeutic types of processes. And I will say, once I started seeing clients, that's when I actually really started to learn what this is all about. And I've done all kinds of trainings since then. I'm a little bit of a training junkie. So every year I go to different conferences and do different kinds of trainings and learn how to do more kinds of things, refine what I'm doing. But when I first started uh, I guess it would have been 2017 when I got my certification. So
Right.
with hypnosis, there's not a license, at least in the United States. There's no license for it,
Right.
but there's a third party certification, and there's several different third party certifiers that you first you get your training, then you take a test. If you answer the questions correctly, you get a certificate that has to be renewed every year, and usually it requires an amount of they call them CEUs, continual education units. So you have to keep learning every year. You learn more.
Right.
So that's how that works. So I did that, and then, like I said, I started working with friends, family members, coworkers. Some of those shared with other people what I was doing, and I started out just doing this for free. And then I started asking pretty quickly. I realized, okay, if there's no cost, they're not really
Yeah.
engaged.
Yeah.
They have no skin in the game. So then I just started asking for a donation. If this was valuable to you, I'm open to a donation. I still have some hand thrown pottery that one of my first clients gave me.
Right.
Uh, And then I started charging a minimal amount, and I just kept going from there. The way that I started really getting clients happened kind of by accident. And it's kind of a funny story. I got a phone call from Yelp. So a lot of us get phone calls from Yelp. Yelp really wants you to, spend money with them. And they convinced me to sign up for their thing and to spend $300 a month on some advertising.
Wow. Okay.
So I did that for a month. And they gave me a free amount of money too. So I think I did it for a couple of months, and it did nothing. It didn't give me anything. So, but I thought, well, I was still working my full-time job at the time and doing this on the side. So
Right.
I was just kind of playing with stuff. I had extra cash to play with. So I thought, well, what would happen if I took this $300 a month and I put it into Google Ads? So I signed up for Google Ads, and Google called me and like, hey, do you want some help setting up your ads? I'm like, yeah, that would be great. So Google helped me set up my ads. And then they called me back a week later. We refined them up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But the moment that I turned them on, I started getting phone calls.
Wow.
And so I started just turning up the money. What I found was I would get somewhere between a 5-to-1 or sometimes a 10-to-1 return on my investment for Google Ads. So Google Ads is how I really amped up my business. And then the other thing that I do is, like I said earlier, I do all kinds of networking. I was a member of BNI, which is a international networking organization. You probably know them, right? Most people in business know what BNI is, because a
Yeah.
lot of
I
us
was a
have
part of
started
it
out there.
once. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of us have been. And BNI was great for when I was in
it
there,
is.
especially when I was in there early. So that was another way that I really, and that was how I was getting just organic clients without ads, just from word of mouth. So between those two things, that is how I really leveled it up. And then, SEO works. The benefit that I have of people specifically looking for a hypnotist works out really well for me, because they're typing in hypnotist near me on their Google, and my website shows up.
Got it, Joshua. Joshua, you've touched upon what is hypnosis and stuff like that. But when it comes to the point of choosing a hypnotist, how do people ascertain that somebody is a legit hypnotist? I'm not
Yeah.
talking about certifications, credibility, and all that. It can be done by anybody, right? But when you have an interaction with an hypnotist, what are some of the other cues that you can probably pick up on, or what could be some green flags or red flags, if you can share with
Yeah.
us?
Well, you're going to want to be able to have a conversation with them before you start working with somebody,
Right.
because regardless of whether or not they are a good hypnotist, a big portion of what helps people change is the relationship that you have with the therapist, whoever they are, whether that's a talk therapist even, or a hypnotist. So
Right.
make sure that you can have a consultation with them. Sometimes they charge for that, and that's okay. Like there's a reason why a hypnotist will charge for a consultation, because we get a lot of weird requests. and
Yeah.
we also get a lot of people that are signing up for a strategy call that never show up. So sometimes they get
Right.
tired of that, and they
Right.
just like, you're going to have to pony up $50 or something like that, minimal, just to book that session. So make sure you can have a phone call with them. It's really helpful if they have Google reviews. That will tell you a lot. And because that's their previous clients sharing the kinds of results that they had. So look for reviews. Look to see if they have a social network presence. That's important too. And more these days, right? That just shows you how serious they are. There are a lot of people that get into hypnosis and are hobbyists. So what I mean by that
Right. Right.
is,
Right.
maybe they have a spouse that is covering all the bills. And so this is just something that they're playing with. It's hard to tell that when you look at a website.
Mm.
You can pay somebody to make you a really nice website.
Yeah.
But Google reviews, that will help you understand how
Right.
serious they are. So if they have like 1 or 2 reviews and then somebody else has 50 reviews, maybe consider the one with the 50 reviews. See where that will take you. I will say too, if they're super inexpensive, that probably means they're a hobbyist too,
A little bit of a red
because
flag there. Yeah.
yeah, and it's not that we need to. I just had a conversation with a client earlier today, a new client, and he was like, "Your cost seems kind of premium. Can you explain to me why it's that much?"
Oh,
And
thank you for
and
bringing
what I
this up. Yeah, please
yeah, and what I said to
share
him
with us
was,
what you
well,
said. Yeah.
yeah, you are not paying me an hourly rate. So you're not paying X amount of dollars per hour for these sessions. That's the wrong way to look at this, because I do training all the time. I'm constantly learning, I'm constantly refining. I run my whole business. So like I'm not just going to work the hour that I see you. I'm working pretty much, I don't know, 80 hours a week on my business, because I have a couple people that help me, but mostly I'm doing this myself. So, and then the other piece is to know that you're paying for a transformational experience. Like this is what you are investing in, your life and the things that you want out of your life that you're not getting right now because you're getting in your own way.
Right.
So that's just my long way of saying, if somebody says I can fix your problem in a single session and it's $50 a session, maybe that's somebody who's brand new and doesn't actually know what it takes to
Right.
get
Right.
somebody where they really need to go. The other thing is, do they offer any kind of support? Like, do they have
Mm.
added recordings or videos that are there to help you, things like that? Like, all of these are little extras that a serious practitioner is going to put the time into doing, and the hobbyist is not even going to think about.
Got it, Joshua. Thank you for this, Joshua. You spoke about what are the ways in which you help people, and you spoke about people coming to you with phobias, fear of doing stuff, or it could be self-sabotage and stuff like that. Now, let's
Mm-hmm.
take a common thing. Let's not get into self-sabotage because I think it's very personal and customized and stuff like that. It's not going to be
Yep.
the same for everybody. But when it comes to fear, let's say a lot of people are they have the fear of heights, or whatever it might be. Is it a common solution, or is it a very individualized sort of a personal problem, even
Yeah,
in these fields?
that's a really great question. I have a process that I can take people through, like from A to Z.
Right.
Usually, though, what happens is, to your point, everyone's a little bit different, and even if we follow that process, it's going to look a little different for everybody. Um,
Mm.
but having said that, there are some processes that are specific,
Right.
that can be used in a very generic way and can give people great results. So I don't, that doesn't exactly answer your question. The
No, no,
answer
no, no,
is
no. It is great. It
yes
is
and
great.
no.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you why I asked you that question, because I was gonna ask you, hey Joshua, you know what? Can you, for our listeners or audience, take one common problem or an easy problem, uh, not an easy problem, a problem that has an easy solution, where you can probably give out a few steps, something that people
Yeah.
can do just listening to you, and maybe benefit. That's why I
So
asked you that question.
okay. So I got something for you,
Right.
and I'm not going to do it on here, but
Okay.
because it's a little bit more in depth than what we could do right here. But what
Sure.
I will say, you know what? I'll give you two things. The first one is there's lots of tools that you can use to calm down the nervous system, right? So when you are feeling afraid, usually what's happening is your body is going into a fight or flight response.
Right.
So the nervous system is made up of two parts. There's sympathetic nervous system, that's fight or flight. There's parasympathetic nervous system, rest and digest. When you're in fear, this is where you're at, fight or flight.
Mm.
One of the simplest ways to calm the nervous system
Mhm.
is to relax your jaw, to let your mouth be open just a little bit, and imagine relaxation in your jaw. Any amount. Like that activates the vagus nerve. Vagus nerve connects the brain to the heart, to the guts. It's the communicator of the nervous system. And when you activate the vagus nerve, that starts to take us into rest and digest. So for the listeners or viewers, however you're consuming this content, if you're feeling some kind of fear, worry, or anxiety, when you notice it, take a moment, let your mouth be open just a little bit, like this is enough. Touch the tip of the tongue to the top of the mouth, and then relax your jaw any amount. And then go back and see if you can relax it a little bit more. And then see if you can relax it a little bit more. That will calm your nervous system. So that's the first thing that I'll give your listeners. The second one is I actually have been trying to figure out a way to help more people in a with less of an investment.
Right.
And I've created a 7-day transformation experience that is delivered through emails and some audio recordings.
Wow.
If you want access to that for free, go to xfactorhypnosis.com/TKES, and it will take you right into the process. Know that this is not your normal kind of email lead magnet kind of thing. The very first message is going to say, if you want this, you have to respond to this message. And I will tell you, most people ignore that and they never go anywhere and they don't get the transformation that they want.
Yeah.
This requires that you are engaged.
Yeah.
Right? So if you want to do this, and this will literally clear out a fear or a worry or an anxiety from your life. I mean, it will literally clear it out. I've spent a lot of time doing this. I run myself through this thing several times when I get triggered by things. It works really well, but you got to be engaged. So if you have something in your life you want to eliminate, and you're willing to put in the effort it's going to take you, which is not a lot, but just a little, I ask you to do a little bit of something every day, then xfactorhypnosis.com/TKES will do that for you.
Awesome, Joshua. Thank you for that. And you know what? I totally get it. It's totally fine for somebody, who's offering help to expect some amount of engagement. I think that's how it should be. Uh, it's just not, you keep sending stuff and you don't know what's happening on the other side. Now, just imagine, people just need to imagine what if that is the case if you are in person facing each other. One person is just giving stuff to you and you just sit like a dead person. Come on, it doesn't work.
And so that's what I'm trying to do is recreate
Right.
an actual session with somebody, which is, why I'm doing it over 7 days, because I don't want to make this too hard for you either. I want to make this simple and easy.
Right.
And it only takes a little bit of time, but it's going to literally change your life if you put the effort into it. And it's free. So boom.
Yeah. Awesome, Joshua. Joshua, what is you must have helped a lot of people. There must be few that is like probably very memorable, close to your heart. Can you share one such?
So I guess the one that pops in my mind is a fellow who struggled with driving anxiety. Wow. And so what would happen is when he would go on the freeway, he would get so filled with anxiety that he wouldn't even go on the freeway. He would take back roads everywhere. So he's spending a lot of extra time getting around the city because that's not an efficient way to get around. So he finally reached out to me. We started working together, and when I'm working with people, I'm teaching different tools that you can do. All the hypnosis processes that we can do together, you can learn to do yourself. And in fact, those are the people that have the best results when they take that on. And this is what he did. So he took this on himself. Wow. And he got to this point where there's a process that we can do that helps you find like a control within your mind for that, whatever that issue is. Mm. And he loved that session. And so before he would drive, he would take himself into hypnosis and he would adjust that control so that he was sure that when he'd be driving, everything would be great. Well, one day he's on the freeway and he realized, oh, I forgot to check my control, but he's driving already. So he can't close his eyes. He can't take himself into hypnosis. So what he did was he just mentally checked in on that control, realized it's exactly where he needs it to be,
Wow.
and then everything was good. What I like about that is he took action. Like he
Right.
was motivated. He wanted this to work, and he made sure that he's using the tools that he's looking for to get them to work. Some of the other things that I think about is I helped a young guy with anxiety and IBS. After the second session, he was finally able to eat something without excruciating pain.
Oh wow,
So like
IBS
that
too? Because I mean, IBS
IBS,
is a physical
see,
problem, right?
it is a physical problem, but there's a correlation to anxiety.
Okay.
And the way,
Right.
I don't know if this is I don't know if this is scientific or medical, but the way that I look at it,
Okay.
because this is how it seems, we're feeling anxiety. And as guys, what do we do a lot of the time? We just kind of shove it down.
Yeah.
We push down emotions. We push down the things that
No,
we
I
don't
mean
want to
it's a
deal
common
with.
thing, Joshua. I mean, I totally agree and relate to the fact I've
Yeah.
experienced myself when I'm in a situation of stress. A lot of times
You
I've
just
run to
kind of
the
shove it
bathroom.
down, right?
Yeah, the
You
reaction
shove it down
happens.
into
Right,
your stomach,
right, right, right.
right? And then your stomach gets wonky. We
Hmm.
feel it in our guts.
Right.
And it seems like if you do that enough, your guts start to react. For some people anyway, not for everybody, but for
Hmm.
some people that
Hmm.
can be IBS comes up. Autoimmune issues can come out of that. Like there's a lot of physical symptoms that can come out of long-term stress and anxiety if it's
Right,
never dealt with. Like if you don't have any tools to manage your
right.
stress, your body is going to be in a fight or flight response all the time. And if it's in a fight or flight response, you've got adrenaline flowing through you, you've got the stress hormones flowing through you. You're a chemical cocktail, and the body gets really stressed out
Right.
when it's dealing with that.
Got it, Joshua. Joshua, I'm gonna go back to one of the points that you had made earlier about pricing, and if you can
Yeah.
share from a business point of view, how did you kind of evolve your pricing? You started
Yeah.
off free, and then you realized
Yep.
free doesn't work, and then you started donation, and then you're at a state where people say premium. So how did because a lot of people hesitate to increase prices, they're not confident of sharing it. How was it for you to reach a stage that you are here today?
Well, so I did a little bit of research and I found out what level the other people are charging where I
Right,
was at. And so when I first started out, I was less than that. But
right.
my goal was always from the very beginning to be premium. Like I want to be the hypnotist that you want to work with at least locally. Like that was kind of my idea back then is locally, I'm going to be the top end hypnotist here in the Twin Cities. So I know that I need to get to this level of uh, to charge this much to hit that level when eventually. But I didn't start out like that. I also wanted to build up a business. So I started out lower.
Right.
And what I would do is as soon as my books were full and I started to get like a waiting list, I just raised the rate a little bit,
Right.
like a third or something like that. And then I'd do it again. And I'd fill up and then I'd raise it again. And it never seemed to make a difference. No matter what I did, it didn't seem to make a difference. But there was a point where it made a difference to me. Like I would feel anxious and fearful in my body when I'm
Hmm.
asking for something beyond what I feel is right. And so I found what was right for me. And that's where I'm at right now.
Wow. Okay. Very interesting. One is, waitlist. That's a very out in the open indication sort of a thing. As long as, you've got your slots open, you probably would want to stick with whatever you're you've priced. But the moment people are willing to wait for you, maybe that's a good indication that you can probably up your prices a
Yeah.
bit. And the most interesting of all was you said when you feel something, when you're not comfortable with the price that you're saying, probably that's where you need to stop. Is that what you meant, the last point,
I mean,
Joshua?
that's sort of what I meant. But the other thing is that means that there's something that I need to deal with.
Right.
If I want to be higher than that, then I got to deal with my own abundance and scarcity mindset stuff, because it doesn't mean that I couldn't charge more.
Mm.
It means that my body doesn't like it when I'm asking for that much, which probably says more about me
Right.
than anything else. It doesn't have anything to do with what I'm charging, but it has to do with what I feel I'm worth, right? So that comes down to what kind of work do I still need to do to get to the point where I can ask for whatever it is that I feel is the right amount and be okay with that.
Got it, Joshua. Joshua, probably my concluding question to you here. I'm going to go back, again, refer to something that you said earlier. You
Yeah.
started off with Google Ads. Very interesting, because I've spoken to a lot of people. None of them literally have started off with Google Ads and have had great results as you did. Uh, Fast forward to now, what's your source of business? Is it still Google Ads, or what's the split between, you might have referrals? How does it all, fall into place?
I mean, it's still Google Ads is the
Okay.
I mean, Google is the main source.
Right.
I do still do Google Ads.
Hmm.
They don't seem to be a 10-to-1 return on investment anymore, but they still are definitely worthwhile for me.
Right.
And so most people are finding me through Google. I do also do networking, so people know me through networking. I have a podcast as well. So I have a podcast called Super States Podcast, where we talk about altered states. So that's another way that people can learn about me. And then I'm out on social media all the time too. So, but having said that, 90% of the people are coming from Google, whether that's ads or not. They're coming from Google. It's probably a portion of it from ads, a portion of it from the maps and from SEO. Like there's all different ways, but still, I'll never turn off the Google ads. Google ads work really well if somebody is looking specifically for your service, and
Right.
if there's not a lot of other competitors that are bidding on those same people. So if you're in a situation like I was, where I was the only hypnotist, still am the only hypnotist in the Twin Cities that uses Google ads, that puts me at the top. That's just like that. That's all it took. So if you can figure out what people are looking for, like for me, they're literally typing in hypnotist near me. And that's how my ads work. So if they're typing in life coach near me or business coach near me,
Right.
and nobody else is putting ads out for that, you could probably
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
really, really well in your local. It has to be local though, right? In your
Yeah.
local
Yeah.
ad area.
Got it, Joshua. Joshua, just one other question. My audience are mostly, teaching people stuff, and a lot of them
Mhm.
teach kids and students. It could be test prep and all that. Have you explored helping students with test prep and stuff with hypnosis? Is that even an area where hypnosis can play a role and help people?
Yeah, and I've worked with some kids that had trouble with SAT, with
Wow. Okay.
doing, with fear, because it's around fear and anxiety around tests. So
Right.
test
Right. Right.
anxiety, right? It's just another anxiety. That's what I do. I help
Right.
you
Okay.
with tools to deal with anxiety and to clear up the stuff that's there, like the stories that we tell ourselves. We clear all that up, change the way that your brain is working so it doesn't have to feel anxiety anymore. So that can work with testing. I've worked with a lot of kids who are into sports and are, again, fear comes up. Usually something happened. Gymnast who fell, a hockey player who got hit,
Right.
right?
Right.
Things happen that are impactful, sometimes literally,
Right.
and leave a impression in the brain and leave them feeling fearful, and so now they're not taking the action when it's
That's
time. Like
that's what you'd call a mental scar, right? Affecting
yeah, like
you. And okay, good.
you could call it a traumatic event or
Traumatic
a
event. Yeah.
emotional event, yeah, a mental scar. There's lots of ways to describe it, but basically something happened and their unconscious mind is trying to keep them safe by not letting that happen again. So usually that means the unconscious mind is holding them back. It's
Right.
not letting them take that shot or try a backflip, or they freeze. They get in fight or flight or freeze, right? That's what fight flight is. It's fight, flight, freeze is part of it too. So we can resolve all of that, whether it's through testing, whether it's through sports.
Got it.
Anxiety is the top thing that I work with.
Got it, Joshua. And because he spoke about anxiety, depression is another word that comes along with anxiety, depression. That's how they kind of, say it. Is depression a part of the, is depression another problem that hypnosis can help with?
So I would never say that I'm going to fix your anxiety, or I mean, fix your depression,
Right,
but I can give you some tools
right.
to help to manage it. And sometimes those tools are enough to resolve it. But I'm not a doctor, so
Yeah, yeah, of course.
it's out of my place to say that I'm going to cure you, but I'm going to give you tools so that you can more easily manage these types of things when they show up. Because depression is a little bit, there is often a correlation between anxiety and depression, but
Yeah, yeah.
depression seems to be a little bit different than anxiety,
Got it,
in
Joshua.
my experience anyway.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. Joshua, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. And thank you for talking about hypnosis, what it is and what it is not. And at the end of the day, to be honest, before, having a conversation with you, I could have read up on all that, but nothing like talking to someone, right?
Sure.
It's, hypnosis is just another type of a tool that you can use to solve a lot of problems, that you're facing. So that's what I'm taking away from it. And
Yeah.
there are a lot of tools available, and I'm going to, remind people to visit, can you
xfactorhypnosis.com.
xfactorhypnosis.com/TKES. That's where you can
Yeah.
sign up for the 7 day free offer that,
Yep.
Joshua said. So yeah, I think that could be a good starting point. Thank you so
And if
much
you go
again,
to X
Joshua. It was a
Factor, if you go
pleasure.
to xfactorhypnosis.com, the main site, all of my social media is there. Like you can get in touch with me however you want to there. Connect with me. I love hearing from people.
Got it. And Joshua, just another clarification. You also do this online, right? I mean, because Google Ads, you talk about
Absolutely, yeah.
local, you do worldwide. Okay, got it.
I work with people all across the country. I've worked with people across the world before. So the hypnosis doesn't need me to be in the same room.
Right.
Most of the time, we're talking, or you might have your eyes closed and you're just listening to my voice. That can be done online just as easily as it can be done in my office.
Got it, Joshua. All right, Joshua. Thank you so much. Before you leave, I'm just going to stop the recording.
Thank you, Jag.